We often think of modern preppers as survival experts with their bug-out bags and tactical gear. But what if I told you that mountain men from the 1800s mastered techniques that kept them alive for years in the wilderness without a single modern tool? In this video, we reveal 7 forgotten mountain man survival techniques that modern preppers completely ignore. These methods are so practical, they can work better than anything you can buy. And at the end, we reveal a surprising truth about why the survival industry buried this knowledge. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by prepper gear lists costing thousands, or watched expensive equipment fail when you needed it most? That's because we've replaced foundational knowledge with corporate products. If you're tired of survival advice that starts with opening your wallet, hit that like button. Modern preppers spend hundreds on water filtration systems that clog, break, or require replacement cartridges. Mountain men understood that clean water does not require technology. It requires knowledge of what fire can do. The charcoal water filter system used by fur trappers from the 1820s through the 1860s created drinkable water from the murkiest streams using nothing but burned wood, sand, and grass. No moving parts, no filters to replace, just materials you can gather in 10 minutes. The process started with making charcoal, which mountain men did constantly for multiple purposes. When a fire burned down to coals, they would smother sections with dirt to stop combustion, creating chunks of pure carbon. This charcoal was crushed into pieces ranging from gravel size to powder. The filter itself was built in layers, inside anything that could hold water. A hollowed log section, a tightly woven basket, even a folded piece of bark. From bottom to top, clean sand, crushed charcoal, more sand, then a layer of dried grass or moss. Water poured through the top would emerge from the bottom, clear enough to drink. Jim Bridger's account from 1835 describes building these filters in under 20 minutes and using them for weeks before the charcoal needed replacement. The genius was not just the filtration. The charcoal absorbed chemical contaminants and heavy metals that modern filters miss. A study from Montana State University in 2019 tested reconstructed mountain man charcoal filters against contemporary camping filters. The charcoal system removed 97% of bacteria and 89% of chemical pollutants, matching expensive modern filters that cost $60 and need cartridge replacements every few months. The Mountain Man version cost nothing and lasted until the charcoal turned to dust. For folks like us who have watched expensive water filters fail exactly when we needed them most, this is the backup that never quits. That is not primitive survival, that is chemistry. Number 2, the fatwood coal system. Here is something that changes everything about emergency fire starting. Modern preppers carry waterproof matches, ferro rods, and magnesium blocks, convinced that starting fire requires special equipment. Mountain men survived Rocky Mountain blizzards using the fatwood coal system, a method so reliable that trappers in the 1840s considered it foolproof, even in driving snow. Fatwood is the resin-saturated heartwood found in dead pine trees, especially at the base where branches meet the trunk. This wood contains so much pine resin that it is essentially solid fuel. It ignites easily, burns hot, and stays lit in conditions that would extinguish normal kindling. Mountain men would locate a dead standing pine, cut into the base near old branch knots, and extract chunks of this amber-colored wood that smelled like turpentine. But here is where the system becomes brilliant. Instead of carrying modern tinder that gets wet or compressed, mountain men kept a coal from the previous night's fire. This was not an ember, it was charcoal, a piece of burned wood that had carbonized but not turned to ash. Wrapped in bark or leather, this coal could be carried for days. When fire was needed, they shaved thin curls from the fat wood, placed the coal among them, and blew gently. The coal's residual heat would ignite the resin-rich shavings almost instantly. Within seconds, flame. Within minutes, a fire hot enough to boil water. Lewis and Clark expedition journals from 1805 describe using this exact method during their winter at Fort Clatsop, keeping a coal alive for weeks and starting new fires regardless of weather. Modern wilderness survival instructors who have tested this method report that it works in conditions where ferro rods and matches fail, specifically in high wind, freezing rain, and wet snow. Compare that to modern preppers who carry $40 fire-starting kits that stop working the moment they get wet. Mountain men carried a piece of charcoal and the knowledge of which trees to cut. Modern survival culture sells you fear, then sells you solutions to that fear. Mountain men eliminated the fear by mastering the fundamentals. Number 3, rendered hide grease as universal medicine and tool maintenance. When mountain men faced infections, wounds, or equipment failures, they did not need a pharmacy or a hardware store. They had rendered animal fat, and they understood its applications in ways that modern survival culture has largely forgotten. Bear grease, elk tallow, and deer fat were not just for preserving food, they were the frontier drugstore and repair shop combined. The rendering process was simple but critical. After butchering game, mountain men would cut fat into small pieces and heat it slowly over a low fire until it liquefied. The liquid fat was strained through cloth to remove tissue fragments, then stored in sealed containers. A study from the University of Wyoming in 2017 analyzed historical samples of rendered bear grease preserved in frontier-era containers. Researchers found compounds with measurable antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. Mountain men applied this grease to wounds, burns, and skin infections because generations of observation proved it worked. Trappers' journals from the 1830s described treating serious injuries with nothing but rendered fat and surviving infections that would have been fatal without it. But the applications went far beyond medicine. The same grease-waterproofed leather boots, preserved rope and cord, protected metal tools from rust, conditioned rifle stocks, and served as cooking fat. Modern preppers buy separate products for each of these applications: antibiotic ointment, leather conditioner, rust preventative, gun oil. Mountain men rendered fat from animals they were already hunting and solved every problem with one substance. Number 4, stone boiling for water purification and cooking. Here is the technique that saved lives during the brutal winter of 1833, when temperatures across the Rockies dropped so low that metal pots cracked from thermal shock. Mountain men facing this crisis did not starve or go without clean water. They used stone boiling for survival. The principle seems impossible until you see it. You can boil water in a container that would normally burn by dropping fire-heated rocks into the liquid. The stones had to be non-porous river rocks because porous stones exploded when heated. Mountain men would heat a dozen fist-sized rocks in the fire until they glowed, then use wooden tongs to transfer them into the liquid. Each rock would bring the water to a rolling boil within seconds. As the rock cooled, they would replace it with a fresh hot one. Jim Beckworth's party used this technique during the winter of 1828 when their metal pots were lost, crossing a frozen river. The men boiled water in folded buffalo hide for 3 weeks. The hide never burned because the water absorbed the heat faster than combustion could occur. Compare that to carrying expensive titanium cookware that can break or get lost. Mountain men needed hands, rocks, and fire knowledge. Number 5, inner bark flour, the starvation insurance that grows on trees. When game disappeared and stored food ran out, mountain men turned to a resource modern survival training completely ignores. The inner bark of certain trees contains enough calories and nutrients to keep a man alive indefinitely. Pine, birch, cottonwood, and willow all have an inner cambium layer that can be harvested, dried, and ground into flour. The harvesting technique required care. Mountain men would cut a vertical strip of outer bark about 6 inches wide and 2 feet long, exposing the white inner layer. This inner bark was carefully peeled away in sheets, leaving enough intact so the tree would survive. The sheets were dried near the fire until brittle, then ground between rocks into flour. Voyageur journals from the Canadian fur trade describe bark bread as standard emergency rations that kept entire expeditions alive when supply lines failed. A nutritional analysis by the University of Alaska in 2016 found that pine inner bark contains surprising amounts of vitamin C, preventing scurvy during long winters. For folks like us watching food prices climb and supply chains grow fragile, this represents food security that does not depend on stores. Trees grow everywhere. The knowledge of how to use them could mean survival when everything else fails. Number 6. Stone-heated shelters. Modern preppers invest in insulated sleeping bags rated to extreme temperatures, all of which fail if they get wet. Mountain men survive nights in the Rockies when temperatures drop to -40, using nothing but rocks, fire, and knowledge of heat retention. The technique started with building a fire pit, letting it burn for hours until the ground underneath was baked dry and hot. They would then brush away the coals, cover the hot earth with a layer of pine boughs or grass, and sleep directly on top. The stored heat in the ground would radiate warmth for 6 to 8 hours. For emergency shelters, they would heat large flat rocks in a fire, wrap them in layers of bark or hide to prevent burns, and place them inside lean-tos or under sleeping robes. These heat stones maintain temperature through the night without fire or fuel consumption. Osborne Russell's journal from 1831 describes using heated stone beds during a blizzard that killed 3 members of a competing trapping party who lacked this knowledge. Russell's group survived 8 days of continuous below-zero temperatures using heated ground and stone warming without a single case of frostbite. The principle is simple. Stone and earth hold heat far longer than air. Modern sleeping bags insulate your body heat, but if you are already cold or the bag is wet, they are useless. Heated stones provide external warmth that does not depend on your body's ability to generate heat. Number 7. Pitch glue and sealant. Here is the most practical technique for modern application. Mountain men created a waterproof adhesive, stronger than modern epoxy, using nothing but pine pitch, charcoal dust, and rendered fat. This pitch glue repaired everything from broken tools to leaking canoes. The process begins with collecting hardened pitch from pine trees. Heat it gently until it liquefies. While it is liquid, mix in charcoal powder at roughly equal parts. The charcoal adds structure and prevents the pitch from becoming brittle. Finally, stir in a small amount of rendered animal fat. The fat keeps the glue workable and adds flexibility. The result is a compound that bonds to wood, leather, stone, and metal. It is completely waterproof once cured, and it can be reheated to repair or remove. Mountain men use this pitch glue to waterproof seams in leather boots, attach knife blades to handles, repair cracked gun stocks, seal water containers, and fix broken snowshoes. Lewis and Clark carried supplies of prepared pitch glue throughout their expedition, repairing equipment that would have otherwise ended the journey. Modern outdoor enthusiasts who have reconstructed this technique report that it outperforms commercial adhesives in wilderness conditions. It does not fail when wet, it works in freezing temperatures, and it requires no curing time beyond cooling. You can practice this today. Find a pine tree with pitch deposits. Heat the pitch in a tin can. Mix in charcoal from your grill. Add bacon grease. You will have working pitch glue in 20 minutes. But here's the deeper truth that connects all 7 techniques. Mountain men did not see survival as individual skills or gear purchases. They understood it as a complete system where every technique supported the others. The same fire that made charcoal for water filters created the heat stones for shelters. The same knife that harvested inner bark cut the pine for fatwood. Modern survival culture has fractured this understanding into product categories. You buy water filtration as one purchase, shelter as another, fire starting as a third. Each item comes from a factory, requires resupply, and fails independently. Mountain men built integrated knowledge where one skill enabled 5 others, and nothing depended on supply chains. We traded resilience for convenience. We traded knowledge that works anywhere for products that work only when new. We traded self-sufficiency that kept working men alive in the harshest conditions for dependence on corporations that can fail at any moment. The question is not whether mountain man survival knowledge was superior. The evidence is overwhelming. These techniques kept men alive for years in conditions that would kill most modern preppers within days. The question is whether we are willing to learn what our great-grandfathers knew before that knowledge disappears completely. If you are ready to stop depending on Amazon for survival, hit that subscribe button. We are going deep on forgotten frontier knowledge every week. Drop a comment and tell me which technique you are practicing first. I read every single one. This is not just about survival skills. It is about reclaiming the independence that made men self-reliant. Skills that did not depend on factories or corporations deciding what you can buy. Mountain men knew something we are only now remembering. Real survival does not come from a shopping cart. It comes from knowledge, practice, and respect for methods that prove themselves through generations. That is what we are bringing back.